Hey, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman from the Steel Curtain Network, joined with Bryan Davis. And before we get started today, Bryan got to do the breaking news podcast of Russell Wilson coming in on a one-year deal late last night, early this morning. I got to do my victory lap. We were the first outlet to talk about Russell Wilson potentially coming to Pittsburgh. We had this news to you all so early on that to the point where you should have woken up this morning, those that have been paying attention, and said, I kind of knew that was coming. Jeff and Bryan told us about that months ago, and then it comes to fruition. And I just want to make something very clear here about this situation. I'm going to write an article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com about this. Kenny Pickett, and this is the one theme that we have said, Bryan, you can vouch for this. Every time we had a report on the quarterback position, what did we say? They're not giving up on Kenny Pickett. They are not turning their back on Kenny Pickett. You can believe what you want, but Kenny Pickett's going to enter this training camp as the QB1. It's going to be up to him to actually win the job. Mike Tomlin spoke about this at his end of season press conference, saying there will be competition. This is what they're talking about. Russell Wilson, one-year deal. So I just want to break my arm, pat myself on the back. We do our victory lap. Bryan, anything to add before we get into the news today?
No, it feels really good. And, we have this luxury of being able to have somebody within the organization to give us this information. Yeah. And it's true. And it's one of those things that you can say, oh, they're just blowing smoke, or it's just a guy they know from down the street.
They're making it up. They're making it up.
Just to get clicks. Look, we're going to give you facts. And we have a policy here. And it's been like this. Just to give you an example, just the NFL awards right before the Super Bowl. The information came out about Cam Hayward, about winning, but we did not have a tweet. We did not have information to back it up. So we didn't report it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't come from our source. It didn't come from, it wasn't good information yet. Now it happened, but we weren't going to jump on it first. We're going to jump on it when we're getting good information, and the information we're getting is good. So the next information you're about to get is just as good. So when you hear that, I know you're going to think, well, there's no way they're bringing in a guy like Russell Wilson and not making him the starter. Well, you can have all these narratives that you want, but this is what we're getting from inside the organization.
Absolutely. And so with the quarterback aside, there's another player whose name has been brought up a lot. And sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. And when the phone rings from our source, you pick it up and you answer. And it's about Diontae Johnson. A lot of rumors circulating that he is on, that he is out there, that the Steelers are shopping him, trying to trade him. Here is what we're hearing from our source, that Diontae Johnson is, quote, on the market. Now, that does not mean that they are shopping him, but it does mean that if someone picks up the phone and they're interested, the Steelers are going to listen. We're hearing the Steelers want to freshen up the wide receiver room. They want they would just want to get some fresh blood in there. And there's nothing imminent. We're not saying that there's a team that's actively pursuing him. We're not saying anything like that. We're not saying the Steelers are calling other teams. But if a team calls and puts an offer on the table that they feel is attractive, Diontae Johnson could be available. There are players, and some people might say this is no news. There are players that the Steelers will not trade no matter what. TJ Watt would be one of them. Minkah Fitzpatrick would be another. That if someone called and said, we're going to give you a king's ransom, they would still probably say, no, he's not available. Diontae Johnson does not fall into that category. The Steelers are saying that he is available if the price is right. Nothing imminent, but if someone picks up the phone, they'll listen. Bryan, we talked about this on our Steelers preview as more of a hypothetical. What do you think about this report?
Yeah, I kind of think that this is absolutely true. And when I hear that they go ahead and freshen up the room, for me, the narrative that I go with is the fact that they are looking for a little bit of a culture shift. And that's what they're doing by bringing Russell Wilson in to help out at the quarterback position, not to take over, but to help out, and to also have some receivers in there to kind of change. The focus needs changed a little bit. You also have to look at his contract situation with he being I believe the $36 million man. And I think that's what he made in the total contract. So with this deal coming up at the end of this season, it kind of makes sense to go ahead and answer the phone if they ask about him, and you can go ahead and move on. And they also will be clearing up a lot of space if they go ahead and trade him, to go ahead and bring in somebody significant at that position. And based on last year not drafting a receiver whatsoever, after drafting 2 the year before, it seems like they're definitely going to have a focus on bringing one in via the draft and bringing one in via free agency.
And if you listen to my Let's Ride podcast Monday morning, I had Derek Bell on, and he was a phenomenal interview. And I asked him about Diontae Johnson. I said, would you trade him? He said, there are teams out there that would love to have Diontae Johnson. He brought up a couple. He talked about the Arizona Cardinals, who have a ton of draft capital. They've got a lot of salary cap space. He brought up the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, yeah, they don't have hardly anyone at the wide receiver position. Those are just two hypothetical teams that are out there. But if those teams were to call and say, oh, Diontae Johnson's on the market, he's available, maybe let's have some conversations. The Steelers might be willing to make that move. And he also followed it up with, and I knew this from my own study and talking to people within our own staff and network, that this wide receiver class in the draft is loaded. And so the Steelers absolutely could take one, maybe even two wide receivers in this draft, not to mention maybe a free agent here or there. And this wide receiver room could have a whole new look. And from what we're hearing from our source is that's what they want. They want the wide receiver room to have a new look.
And I absolutely agree with that, because look who you would actually be keeping. You would be keeping a guy like George Pickens and Calvin Austin III. Those two would stick around. You know that Allen Robinson has been let go. And so really, who else do you have right now? So they're going to be bringing some guys in. But if you had an opportunity to trade Diontae Johnson, get some draft capital, clear some space, you're also able to bring in a street free agent, well, actually an unrestricted free agent like a Tyler Boyd. There's different guys out there that there are trade possibilities. There are all kind of things out there. There's another team that they expect to lose a receiver, and it's Gabe Davis, which Gabe Davis for the Buffalo Bills might be available, which means that'd be a great landing spot for Diontae Johnson. That's just coming at the top of my head too.
Right.
This is nothing that I've heard.
Yeah.
But so there you have a chance to go ahead and completely, I don't want to say change the culture, but completely change the look of the wide receiver room, and freshening up is not a bad thing.
And the thing is, too, everyone's going to draw a comparison to the most recent wide receiver trade, which was a Jerry Jeudy from the Denver Broncos got shipped to Cleveland. I believe Cleveland only had to give up a 5th and a 6th round draft pick. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, Bryan, but it wasn't a high, but they picked up his contract. And as the Broncos now have to pay Russell Wilson $39 million for this year, they had to clear some stuff around. And so getting that contract of Jerry Jeudy off of their books was probably their primary goal. I would not say that this is going to be the watermark, so to speak, in terms of trade value for someone that is like a Diontae Johnson. Jerry Jeudy's a very talented wide receiver. I'm not taking anything away from him. But if someone's trying to draw that parallel between that return that Denver got and Cleveland gave up, I wouldn't suggest that that's where the Steelers are. They're not in that salary cap situation. They don't have to move on from him if they don't want to. But from, again, what we're hearing, nothing imminent, but he's available. And that's interesting. That's really interesting to me, Bryan.
Yeah, let me talk about the Jeudy thing real quick. I was sitting next to, when I read the news about Jerry Jeudy, I broke into a Broncos fan, a very knowledgeable Broncos fan that I've actually had on a Here We Go a couple years ago talking about the Broncos, a guy that seems to know a lot of stuff. And when I told him that, he said, no, that's great. He was thrilled because of what it will mean to the salary cap and the team. He's still upset about the Justin Simmons thing. He didn't think that was good relief, but Denver has to sell off assets right now. And that wasn't the most important asset for him to keep as far as being a Denver Bronco fan. So I get it. This Russ Wilson situation has put the Broncos in a situation. It's going to benefit other teams as well. And the Cleveland Browns benefited from it, but it doesn't hamstring what the Steelers can do with Diontae Johnson.
Absolutely. And so we're going to be back with you probably throughout the day. Breaking news as the Steelers make moves, not signing. It's not official till Wednesday, but with the tampering period starting today on Monday, the Steelers absolutely are going to be signing. Some players are coming to terms on deals. And when that happens, if that happens today, we'll be on for another breaking news podcast. Make sure you find us on YouTube. like, subscribe to all of our content there. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, anywhere where you want to get your podcast by searching Steelers. You'll find the Steel Curtain Network. Make sure you check that out. In the meantime, this has been another Source Breaking News podcast. I'm Jeff Hartman for Bryan Davis. Everyone have a great day. We'll be talking soon, I'm sure. Take it easy.